What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. I'm coming at you today with a Lego rockwork tutorial. Now, I don't consider myself a master at building rockwork, but between my Utapao and Kato Nemoidia mocs, I would say I have a decent amount of experience. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you what I've learned and what I used to create those iconic Utapao and Kato Nemoidia cliff walls. All that being said, if you're excited to learn some tips today, then don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button. And if you haven't already, consider hitting the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future mocs or tutorials. All that being said, let's build some rocks. Alright, first things first, I've got my base plate right here, and we are going to start with the bottom row, which is very important. This will, starting with a great base, will set you up to have a great rest of your rock work. If you don't pay attention down here, your cliff will suffer as a result. So in my studies of rocks and cliff work, I've noticed they're very layered, kind of like shale. You know, it's lots of little thin layers hooked together. You can see that on a lot of the cliff work I do. So we're going to start by laying down some bricks and then putting some slopes to create these different layers right here. And don't worry if they look kind of rough now. We're going to smooth it out as we go. Basically what we're going to do right now is just make sure we start out with a good solid base and something to build off of. Another thing I like to do is create double slopes like this. So basically what you have right here is a little pop out where the cliff wall juts out, and it does that on both sides. You can see right here and right here it's only on the one side, but these double-sided ones just allow you to give a little bit of depth and a little bit of texture. One thing you don't want to do is be super repetitive with the types of parts you use. So one thing I've been trying to implement more is bricks on their side. You know, typically when we're building with slopes, they're going to be placed down like this, like all of these are, but I've been starting to incorporate more stuff like this. And you do that by just getting a headlight brick like this, sticking it behind the slope in the middle section, sticking a piece of tile underneath where you want the slope to go, and then there you go. You've got that same slope you're looking for, but because the brick's on its side, it gives you a different look than what you have over here and adds a little bit of variation. So I'm going to do that again over here, but I'm actually going to use a corner wedge plate like this to kind of help transition ourselves from this front flat wall back to this next level. One of my favorite combinations to use when building rockwork is getting a 1x3 slope and one of these 1x2x5s. Just because of how drastic the angle difference is, it creates such a cool look and a very natural look, because you don't want to have too many slopes of the same angle stacked on top of each other, because that's not going to look very realistic. So now that I've got this entire first row placed, we're not going to do anything else with it. It doesn't meld into the ground very well. That's okay, we're going to deal with that later. Now what we're going to work on is continuing these angles and patterns that we've started on this base and then move upward with those. So now we've gotten to the top of a lot of these first slopes that we put in, and this is where our next change in the build is going to come in. So whenever you have a slope, like I was saying earlier, you don't want to put the same exact slope on top of that. I mean, you can do that if you can make it work. What I tend to like to do in order to break up my angles and slopes is to put the opposite piece down of what's underneath it. So if I have a slope down here, I'm going to put a flat brick up here. Now, another thing you're going to want to pay attention to before you get too far is the backside of your rock feature, rock face, cliff, whatever you're building, where the filler brick grows. You can see I don't have any filler brick in here. Normally, I would have already put some filler brick down so you can get bricks in underneath here and here. But because this is such a small chunk of rock work and it's really only for the tutorial's sake, I didn't bother with that. The next thing I want to show you how to build is a little plateau section. So that's what's going on right here. I love putting these in. So you're going to want to put two angled bricks on either side facing each other like this, so it creates basically a little valley, and then put some kind of tile in between that. And then behind this, where the filler brick goes, make sure you put the appropriate color. Now that I've got kind of the basics of how I get my rockwork started, we're going to start adding some more details and things to look at on the actual cliff face. So I'm going to add a large crack right here. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to create a slope of some kind. Doesn't matter what bricks you use, all you have to imagine is like what you want your crack to look like, and then mirror that on the other side with the same bricks. So you see I have a 1x2 slope here, so I'm going to have a 1x2 inverted slope here. And you're not going to want to stick them directly next to each other, but space them out one brick. That way, you know, this side is going to mirror this side. So basically you're going to be able to draw whatever shape you want out of these bricks. And then once you've got kind of the beginning of your shape made, you're going to want to flip it around and then start building here from the back, because you're going to want to see where you can see your crack from here, so you can make sure to put the appropriate colored brick right here. And there you have it. You've got the beginnings of a nice little crack in your rockwork. Another thing I find helpful is whenever you have an angled wedge piece like this, I like to mirror this outside angle with slopes. I'm actually going to put in a brick like this and then put in a 1x2 slope up above that, just to help mirror that same angle a little bit, just that this looks a little bit more like a natural curve. Next, what I'm going to do is add a little bit of depth over here, just because this section of the wall is looking a little flat. So we're going to add kind of almost like an arch slope right here, kind of like what we were doing with the crack, but we're not going to have anything over here on this side mirroring it. So I've got that inverted slope in right there. And then once you've got a little bit of a slope going here, or a curve, you can decide to smooth it out, put more slopes on it. Basically, do anything that I've showed you from the previous steps, or even put your own thing in. One of the last things I'm going to show you is how to add a not so dramatic crack into your rockwork. So you can see we've got a flat brick right here, and we're going to stick a slope next to it to kind of create the beginning of that crack, and then just exaggerate it using more slopes like this going in the opposite direction. Then of course, make sure you place the appropriate bricks behind that to make sure your cracks got the right color down here at the base. Another little technique I want to show you is what I call a water runoff. So basically I like to imagine, water running down the front of my rockwork, and I like to picture what that would do to the rock face. And so I'll create somewhat of a little one-sided slope starting right here. You can see I've got this slope up here, and then basically I'll build up on top of that with another slope, and then have it run down here. Water could potentially collect here, weathering this down to this little plateau, and then running down here. So that's another great thing to imagine too, is kind of what water would look like running down your mountain. So we got all finished with the rock wall, but we're still not done. If you guys remember, I said we would come back to the base here at the end. What you're going to want to get is a lot of cheese slopes, tiles, plates, and then basically stick them up against the wall and build them so they look like they meld into the wall. You can even just pile up, studs and slopes like this to make it look like mini mounds or parts of the mountain or rockwork that have fallen and sagged. One of the great things about using this technique with bricks on their side is you now have studs along the bottom row of your mock. So the more of these you put in, the more opportunities you have to build off of the front of your wall and then make it look like it's coming up from the ground and melding into the rock wall. Well, that wraps up this tutorial. Hope you guys like what you see here. I hope you guys learned some valuable things and some new tips and tricks and ways to build great cliff rocks. Well, don't forget to let me know what you thought down below in the comments, what you enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know down there. And I will catch you guys next time, but until then, happy building.